You know, Belgium is still in lockdown. What is this, the fourth day? It's going to go on another couple of days. And when they're in lockdown, that is a serious deal. I mean, almost everything ground to a halt now. Not as much as a halt as before. But if Benjamin Hall in Brussels is right, a significant halt in, well, everyday activity. Benjamin.
Yeah, well, that's right, Neil. And, you know, we've been hoping that this would end quite soon. But the Belgian Prime Minister announcing just in the last hour or so that they arrested 21 people last night. They've released 17. 3 are being held for questioning and only 1 has been charged with terrorist suspects. So a failure for many people on the streets here. Now, the streets here are quiet right now, but they were not last night. Helicopters overhead, police closing down many streets and telling people to get indoors. Heavily armed police raided numerous buildings, including a number in the now infamous Molenbeek district of Molenbeek. The Prime Minister announced a few days ago that there was a serious and imminent attack on this city, possibly by another ISIS cell. And 1,000 new soldiers came onto the streets of the capital, closing subways, schools, shops. Now, those measures remain in place and will do so till Wednesday, so it does seem as if any attack has not yet been prevented here. However, for many, the main target of those raids yesterday was Saleh Abdeslam. He's the Paris attacker who got away, and he is still at large. People are starting to ask questions about how that's possible 10 days after the raid took place. People here, though, relieved that those raids came yesterday after a few tense days, but that tension resumes today because there's been no success. What's clear now is that many larger questions remain about how to control certain areas, immigration, where the police should now be raiding house to house. And specifically here on the streets of Belgium, people understand there's a terror threat, but they also need their schools back, their shops back, their subways back. And a lot of tension between the public and the authorities now as information just really isn't coming across. So we wait to see if an attack is imminent and what the authorities will do. Neil.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin. Please be safe. Benjamin, with the very latest on Belgium. All right, so this continues for another couple of days. Now, how is this all factoring out here? Well, we know that we're on, obviously, higher alert here in the United States. But politically, the one clear advantage has been coming for Donald Trump. He has been the biggest beneficiary, if you want to put it that way, in polls that he was prescient on the threat of ISIS and those who sneak over borders, period. But what's interesting is what's happening on the Democratic side, because Hillary Clinton is losing to the 6 top Republicans as we speak. Whether foreign policy is what's doing it is anyone's guess, but I'm guessing that pollster Frank Luntz has some ideas. He joins us right now. Frank, what is hurting her here?
Well, I just want to make one comment about Trump because you raised it, and it is his overt, and some would say excessive language that's actually appealing to Republican voters. When he said that we ought to bomb the X, I don't want to get fired here. We had to bomb the X out of ISIS. You had Republicans all across the country standing up and applauding. And that may not be appropriate language in diplomacy, but it is exactly what Republicans wanted to hear. And on the Democratic side, when Hillary Clinton spoke last year about having to empathize or learn how to empathize with our opponents, you can't find a single American who wants to empathize with ISIS. They want to eliminate the threat. And so her language isn't calibrated to where the country is right now. It may have worked 12 or 18 months ago, but today the American public is saying you've got to do something. You've got to be tough. You've got to be determined. And her language and her policies don't seem strong enough. And I think that's one of the reasons why you see independent voters over the last few weeks moving away from her towards the Republicans.
I find this movement to Marco Rubio, though, particularly intriguing because it's as if in the last few weeks there's been a shift in the political sands. What's going on there?
Well, one of the reasons is his debate performance, and he's got the most details of any of the candidates running right now, with maybe Chris Christie a close second. What Rubio is doing is that he's not only describing a policy, but he's actually describing a plan. He's being much more specific and much more pointed. And he's doing so in a way that makes voters reassured, that says to them that he understands the issues, he understands the implications. And it's amazing because here he is, a United States Senator only for 5 years, right, and yet his strongest point is actually foreign policy.
You know, smart guys like you've always reminded me it is, by and large, about the economy. How it's doing will decide ultimately how folks go about voting. But could this be a case where the concerns are paramount about terror? Because out of nowhere, ISIS has emerged as a premier concern. Paris is obviously a big reason. But if it's a constant reminder and a constant threat, then that changes, doesn't it?
Well, I'll put it in perspective. For Democrats, it's all about income inequality. For independents, it's about the economy and jobs in general. And for Republicans already, even before the ISIS attack, national security was their #1 issue, and it has only grown. I promise you this, Neil, no Republican nominee is going to be successful, will be able to capture that nomination without having a specific foreign policy, national security agenda, a specific plan. Because over the next few weeks, I expect national security to get a 10-point advantage over economic security in terms of what voters want to hear about.
Wow, 10-point advantage.
It's significant.
Yeah, I put him on. You know, Frank, it's just me, but you might have a future at this political analysis. You should stick with it. Seems very promising.
Well, you know, 79% of all statistics are made up on the spot, so I figure maybe I do have a future in this.
Frank, thank you very, very much. Frank Luntz.